best friend's sister claims her son is his. The accusation came out of nowhere, like a punch you don't see coming until you're already on the ground. I was having a normal Tuesday, the kind where nothing memorable happens, when my phone lit up with her name, Tessa, my best friend's little sister. "We need to talk," she said, her voice strained through the speaker. "It's important." I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she needed advice about college or wanted to surprise her brother for his birthday. Whatever it was, I wasn't prepared for what came next. My name is Daniel, and until that phone call, my life was comfortably predictable. At 27, I had a decent job as a software developer, my own apartment, and weekends spent gaming with Jake, my best friend since high school. His family had always treated me like one of their own. His little sister Tessa was just that, Jake's kid sister, someone I'd watched grow up, someone I barely thought about. We met at a cafe near her place. She arrived pushing a stroller, which wasn't surprising. I knew she had a baby, a little boy about a year and a half old. I'd seen photos on social media but had never met him in person. What was surprising was the intensity in her eyes as she sat down across from me. "This is Trevor," she said, gesturing to the sleeping child. "Your son." The world seemed to stop. My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth as her words hung in the air between us. "That's not possible," I said finally, setting down my cup before I dropped it. "Tessa, I've never. Look at him," she insisted, pulling back the stroller's canopy to reveal the child's face. "He has your nose, your chin. Everyone says so." I stared at the sleeping boy, trying to see myself in his features. Maybe there was something in the shape of his face, but couldn't any baby look like almost anyone if you were looking for it? "I don't remember ever being with you," I said, keeping my voice low. "I think I'd remember something like that." Her face hardened. "Are you calling me a liar? You think I'd make this up?" "I'm saying there must be some mistake. We need a DNA test." The moment I mentioned a DNA test, something changed in her expression, a flicker of, was it panic? But it was quickly replaced by anger. "A DNA test? Are you serious? I know who I slept with. I know who fathered my child." Her voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. "You can see it. He looks exactly like you." I tried to calm her down, but she was already gathering her things, roughly adjusting the stroller. "This was a mistake," she muttered. "I thought you'd man up and take responsibility." Before I could say anything else, she was gone, leaving me with a cold coffee and a bomb dropped in the middle of my life. I didn't hear from Jake for 3 days after that. When he finally called, his voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "You slept with my sister." My stomach dropped. "Jake, I swear to you, I have no memory of ever being with Tessa. I would never." "Save it," he cut me off. "She told me everything. She's devastated that you're denying it." "I'm not denying anything. I'm saying it never happened." "Then how do you explain Trevor? He's the spitting image of you, man. Even my parents noticed it." I ran a hand through my hair, pacing my apartment. "I can't explain it because I don't know what happened. All I'm asking for is a DNA test." "The fact that you're demanding a test says everything I need to know about you," Jake said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Stay away from my family, Daniel." "We're done." The line went dead. Just like that, my oldest friendship was over. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through social media, finding photos of Trevor on Tessa's profile. I studied them closely, trying to see what everyone else apparently saw so clearly. There was something in the shape of his eyes, maybe. But was it really obvious? Was I in denial? The Reddit thread I created that night exploded with responses. I laid out the situation as clearly as I could, omitting names and specific details. The consensus was overwhelming. Get a legal DNA test, not just for my sake, but for the child's. "If you're the father, you need to know," one commenter wrote. "And if you're not, this woman is committing paternity fraud." Another wrote, "Her anger when you suggested a DNA test is a red flag. Innocent people don't typically react that way." I screenshotted the most helpful responses and spent the next day researching paternity testing. The home tests were cheaper and faster, but the legal ones would stand up in court. if it came to that. The thought made me sick. How had my life come to this? 3 days later, Tessa called again. Her voice was subdued. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, "about the DNA test." I held my breath, afraid to say anything that might change her mind. "I'll do a home test with you," she continued, "but only because I know what it will show, and then you'll have to step up and be a father to Trevor." We agreed to meet at my apartment the following weekend. I ordered the test kit, which arrived in a plain brown package 2 days later. Inside were 2 sealed swabs, instructions, and a prepaid envelope to send the samples to the lab. When Tessa arrived with Trevor, the atmosphere was tense. The baby was awake this time, looking around my apartment with curious eyes. He was walking now, unsteady on his feet, but determined, clutching his mother's fingers. "He's gotten bigger since I saw him last," I said, trying to break the ice. "Babies do that," Tessa replied flatly. The test itself was simple. A quick swab inside my cheek, then one for Trevor. Tessa watched me like a hawk as I sealed both samples according to the instructions. "Results take 2 to 3 business days," I said, dropping the package at the post office later that afternoon, while Tessa waited in the car with Trevor. The wait was excruciating. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about how my life would change if the test came back positive. Child support, custody arrangements, co-parenting with someone who had essentially become a stranger and who was the sister of my former best friend. When the email finally arrived, I stared at it for a full minute before I could bring myself to open it. The subject line gave nothing away. "Your results are ready." I clicked, scanned the scientific terminology, stopped at the conclusion. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I was Trevor's father. The room seemed to spin. I had to sit down, my legs suddenly unable to support me. How? When? I truly had no memory of ever being intimate with Tessa. Was it possible to forget something like that entirely? I called her immediately. "We need to talk. In person." The park was neutral territory. Trevor played on a small slide while we sat on a bench nearby, close enough to watch him, but with enough privacy to talk. "The test says I'm his father," I began, watching her face carefully. "But I still have no memory of us ever being together. I need you to tell me when this happened." Tessa sighed, her eyes on her son, our son, as he giggled, sliding down into the wood chips below. "It was at Jake's birthday party," she said finally. 2 years ago, the one at his apartment. I remembered the party. Jake had turned 25 and we'd gone all out. Plenty of alcohol, music, friends, from every part of his life. I remembered getting extremely drunk, one of the few times I'd ever blacked out. I'd woken up on Jake's couch the next morning with a brutal hangover and hazy memories of the night before. "You were really drunk," Tessa continued, her voice quieter now, like really drunk. "You could barely stand up. Jake told me to help you to the spare room to sleep it off." A cold feeling spread through my chest. And I'd always had a crush on you. Since I was like 16. You never noticed me. Never saw me as anything but Jake's annoying little sister. Her voice had an edge to it now. "But that night, you looked at me differently. Or at least, I thought you did." "Tessa," I said slowly, "if I was as drunk as you say, I couldn't consent to anything." Her face flushed. "You didn't say no. You kissed me back." "Because I was incapacitated," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "If our situations were reversed, if you were the one who could barely stand, it wasn't like that," she interrupted. "You wanted it too." But her eyes wouldn't meet mine, and I knew. I knew what had happened. What she had done. "Did Jake know?" I asked, the betrayal cutting even deeper. "Did he know this whole time?" Her silence was answer enough. "He figured it out when I got pregnant," she admitted finally. "The timing. He did the math. I made him promise not to tell you. I thought I could handle it on my own." "For 2 years?" My voice rose, and I had to consciously lower it, aware of the other families in the park. "You kept my child from me for 2 years?" and then suddenly decided I needed to know? Mom and Dad have been helping me, but it's not enough anymore. Trevor deserves his father, and I need help. Financial help. The truth, finally. It wasn't about me manning up or taking responsibility. It was about money. And Jake went along with this? He knew you took advantage of me when I was incapacitated, kept my child a secret from me, and then suddenly decided to ambush me with paternity claims when you needed money? Tessa's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't like that. Jake was protecting me. He was angry at first, but he's always been there for me. While lying to my face for 2 years, I finished. Some best friend. The next weeks were a blur of legal consultations and paperwork. I hired a family law attorney who explained my options. Since the paternity test confirmed I was Trevor's father, I had both rights and responsibilities. We could either work out an arrangement privately with Tessa or go through the courts. Given the circumstances of conception, you might have grounds for a civil case, my lawyer explained. But that's separate from the family court issues. I didn't want to think about pressing charges. My mind was still reeling from the revelation, still trying to process that I was a father, that my best friend had betrayed me, that Tessa had. I couldn't even name what she had done to me. The word felt too heavy, too permanent. Jake tried to call several times. I ignored him until I was ready, which wasn't until almost 3 weeks after the park conversation with Tessa. I should have told you, he said when I finally answered. I know that now. 2 years, Jake? 2 years you kept my son from me. I was trying to protect my sister. From what? From taking responsibility for what she did? Or from me having any part in my son's life? He had no good answer. Our friendship, built over 15 years, had fractured beyond easy repair. Maybe someday we could rebuild something, but not now. Not when the betrayal was still so raw. With Tessa, things were cordial but distant. We worked out a temporary custody arrangement while the legal process moved forward. I spent time with Trevor getting to know this little person who was half me. He was curious and energetic, with a contagious laugh. When he smiled, I could see myself in him. Not just in his features, but in his expressions, the way his whole face lit up. The first time he called me Dada, prompted by Tessa during a handoff, I felt something crack open inside me. Something I hadn't known was there. Through all the anger and hurt and legal complications, there was this, my son. A child I never expected, conceived in circumstances I couldn't remember, but mine nonetheless. At night, I sometimes lay awake thinking about the birthday party, trying to recover any fragment of memory from those missing hours. Nothing ever came back. That time remained a blank space, a chapter written in my life story that I would never be able to read. I had to live with that uncertainty, that violation. But when I looked at Trevor, I didn't see that night. I saw possibility. I saw a future I needed to shape, a little boy who deserved the best father I could be, regardless of how he came into this world. The custody hearing was scheduled for next month. My lawyer was confident we could get a fair arrangement given the circumstances. Tessa had hired her own attorney, but seemed resigned to sharing custody. Her financial situation had become more desperate, which was likely why she'd finally approached me in the first place. Last weekend, I set up a small bedroom for Trevor in my apartment, painted the walls a soft blue, assembled a toddler bed, filled a bookshelf with picture books. Jake's mother, Trevor's grandmother, sent over some of his favorite toys, a peace offering perhaps, or simply an acknowledgement of reality. As I arranged the stuffed animals on Trevor's bed, I thought about the long road ahead. Co-parenting with someone under these circumstances wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding trust with Jake's family, if that was even possible, would take years. Healing from what happened to me that night might take even longer. But when Trevor stayed overnight for the first time, his small body curled against mine as I read him a bedtime story, his eyelids growing heavy as he fought sleep, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever complications had brought us together, whatever pain and betrayal lay in our past, this child was mine, and I would move heaven and earth to be the father he deserved.